What if everything you know about the ancient world is a lie? What if the timeline of history we've been taught is missing its most important chapter, a chapter deliberately erased, drowned beneath a global cataclysm? Prepare to journey back, beyond the dawn of recorded time, to a world you were never meant to see. We'll start by asking the most fundamental question imaginable: the moon before the flood, was it always there? We'll explore the unsettling myths that claim our moon was brought here, a celestial engine that ended a forgotten age. Then, we dive deep beneath the waves to find the builders of the abyss. We'll uncover the ruins of impossible pre-flood underwater civilizations, cities of stone that sleep in the dark, challenging the very notion of when and where civilization began. From there, we trace the Serpent Path, a lost global network of ley lines and stargates. Did our ancestors harness the very energy of the Earth, creating a grid that offered instantaneous travel and power beyond our wildest dreams? We will look into the eyes of the rulers of that lost world, the Shining Ones. We'll confront the global legends of divine, non-human beings who reigned for thousands of years before the first human kings, and ask if these godlike figures were our creators, or our enslavers. Finally, we will unlock the secrets of their lost science in the crystal temples and the memory of stone. We'll reveal a technology based on living crystals and resonant frequencies, capable of powering cities, healing the body, and storing knowledge within the very fabric of the Earth itself. This is the world before the flood. The history that was submerged. The story that has been waiting to be told. So, silence your disbelief, open your mind, and let's begin. In the vast, silent theater of the cosmos, our planet has a constant, silent companion, the moon. It is the metronome of our tides, the inspiration for lovers and poets, a beacon in the inky blackness of night. We are so accustomed to its reassuring presence that to imagine an Earth without the moon is to picture a world alien and incomplete. Yet, what if this constant companion is a relatively new arrival? What if, in the deep recesses of human history, in a time before the great cataclysms that reshaped civilizations, our ancestors looked up at a night sky devoid of its lunar glow? This is a journey into the shadows of our past, an exploration of a time when Earth may have been a very different world. And the arrival of the moon may have heralded the end of an age. Some of the most ancient and sacred traditions of humanity speak not of the moon's creation, but of its arrival. These are not the bedtime stories of simple people, but the foundational myths of sophisticated civilizations, cultures that possessed an uncanny understanding of the cosmos. The Zulus, a people with a rich and profound oral history, have traditions that some interpret as suggesting the moon was brought to Earth. Their legends, passed down through generations of shamans, speak of a time when the Earth was shrouded in a perpetual soft mist, and the heavens were not as they are today. While their primary creation myths speak of a creator god fashioning the sun and moon, there are whispers within their esoteric lore of a great disruption, a celestial event that forever altered the planet's balance. Further north, in the Fertile Crescent that cradled the dawn of civilization, the Sumerians etched their own cosmic histories onto clay tablets. Their epic, the Enuma Elish, tells of a cataclysmic battle in the heavens, a celestial war between planetary gods. In this ancient narrative, a primordial world, Tiamat, is cleaved in two by an invading celestial body. One half of Tiamat is said to have been shattered into what we now know as the asteroid belt, while the other half was thrust into a new orbit, becoming the Earth. But what of the moon? The texts are cryptic, yet some interpretations suggest that our lunar companion was a spoil of this cosmic war, a pre-existing satellite of the invading world, or perhaps even a fragment of the shattered Tiamat itself, captured in Earth's gravitational embrace. Could these be the allegorical recollections of a real astronomical event, a bringing of the moon that violently reshaped our world and its destiny? This notion of the moon as a foreign object, an interloper in our celestial neighborhood, gains a strange and compelling resonance when we consider one of the most enduring and controversial theories about its nature, the hollow moon hypothesis. At first glance, the idea sounds like the fever dream of a science fiction novelist. Yet, its origins are rooted in a startling scientific observation that has never been fully explained. During the Apollo missions, the brave pioneers of lunar exploration left behind more than just footprints and flags. They deployed a series of seismometers on the moon's surface, sensitive instruments designed to listen to the very heartbeat of our satellite. On November 20, 1969, the Apollo 12 mission deliberately crashed its lunar module's ascent stage onto the moon's surface. The impact, equivalent to a small earthquake, sent shockwaves rippling through the lunar body. The result was astonishing. The moon, according to NASA scientists, rang like a bell for almost an hour. This was not the brief, dampened shudder one would expect from a solid celestial body. It was a prolonged, resonant vibration, as if a giant gong had been struck. This single, inexplicable observation gave birth to a cascade of questions. How could a solid body reverberate in such a way? The phenomenon led some to a radical conclusion: the moon is not a solid sphere of rock. Instead, they proposed, it is a hollow, or at least a largely cavernous, object. The theory was first given serious consideration by two Soviet scientists, Michael Vassin and Alexander Sherbakov, in 1970. They argued that the moon's crust is far too dense and its overall density far too low for it to be a solid, naturally formed object. They pointed to the remarkably shallow depth of lunar craters. Even the largest impacts seem to have barely scratched the surface, as if they were stopped by an incredibly hard, reinforced hull lying just beneath the dust. Could the moon, they speculated, be an artificial structure? A colossal, ancient spaceship, perhaps, carefully placed in orbit around our planet by an intelligence far beyond our own? This is the spaceship moon theory, a concept so audacious it borders on the fantastical. Yet, it offers a chillingly elegant explanation for the moon's many anomalies. Its perfectly circular orbit, its precise size and distance that allow for perfect solar eclipses, a celestial coincidence not seen with any other moon in our solar system. Could these all be the hallmarks of intelligent design? Mainstream science, of course, has an arsenal of rebuttals. The ringing is attributed to the moon's extreme dryness and lack of water to dampen seismic waves. The density discrepancies are explained by the giant impact hypothesis, which posits that the moon was formed from the lighter, crustal material of a proto-Earth after a massive collision. And yet, the questions linger, whispered in the corridors of fringe science and echoing in the minds of those who dare to look up and wonder whether an artificial construct or a natural, albeit enigmatic, satellite. The moon's influence on Earth is undeniable. Its most obvious effect is the tidal lock, the gravitational embrace that ensures we only ever see one face of our celestial partner. This constant, unwavering gaze is a reminder of a powerful and intimate relationship. The moon's gravitational pull not only tugs at our oceans, creating the rhythmic ebb and flow of the tides, but it also exerts a subtle yet profound influence on the very fabric of life on Earth. For millennia, farmers have planted their crops by the phases of the moon, their folklore a testament to a deep, intuitive understanding of its power over growth and fertility. The cycles of many marine organisms are inextricably linked to the lunar calendar, a silent, cosmic ballet of reproduction and migration. But what of our own internal tides? For centuries, the word lunacy has tied our emotional and psychological states to the moon's influence. While Modern medicine has largely dismissed these notions as superstition. A growing body of research is beginning to suggest that our ancestors may have been onto something. Studies have shown correlations between the lunar phases and fluctuations in everything from crime rates and hospital admissions to sleep patterns and even birth rates. Some researchers have proposed a theory of biological tides, suggesting that the moon's gravitational pull affects the water within our own bodies, influencing our hormonal cycles, our moods, and our very consciousness. Is it possible that the moon acts as a great, celestial regulator, a pacemaker for the emotional and biological rhythms of our planet? If so, what was Earth like before this regulator was in place? A world of chaotic, untamed energies, a place of extreme and unpredictable biological and emotional states. This leads us to an even more speculative, and perhaps more terrifying, possibility. If the moon was indeed brought to Earth, was its arrival a mere cosmic accident, or was it a deliberate act? Could the moon have been part of a vast, ancient terraforming operation? Imagine a pre-lunar Earth, a world rich in resources but perhaps too volatile, too chaotic for the flourishing of a complex, sentient civilization. A world with a more rapid rotation, leading to ferocious winds and a drastically different climate. A world without the stabilizing influence of a large moon to temper its axial tilt, resulting in wild, unpredictable seasonal shifts. In such a world, the introduction of a moon of precisely the right mass and at the perfect distance could have been a masterstroke of planetary engineering. It would have slowed the Earth's rotation, lengthening the day and calming the global weather patterns. It would have stabilized the planet's axial tilt, creating the predictable, life-giving seasons we know today. It would have introduced the tides, creating a rich and diverse intertidal zone, a crucible for the evolution of new life forms. The moon, in this scenario, becomes not just a celestial body, but a tool, a piece of technology on an unimaginable scale, designed to transform a hostile world into a cradle for life. But if the moon's arrival was a deliberate act of creation, what did it destroy? This is where the whispers of ancient myths converge with the tantalizing clues of a lost world. The concept of an antediluvian era, a time before a great, world-altering flood, is a recurring theme in cultures across the globe. From the biblical story of Noah to the Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh and the flood myths of countless indigenous peoples, there is a collective memory of a former age, an advanced civilization that was wiped from the face of the earth. Could the arrival of the moon have been the trigger for this cataclysm? The gravitational forces unleashed by the capture of a body the size of the moon would have been unimaginable. The Earth's crust would have buckled, triggering earthquakes of a magnitude we can barely comprehend and volcanic eruptions that would have choked the skies with ash. The oceans, drawn towards this new celestial body, would have surged across the continents in colossal tidal waves, washing away everything in their path. The great flood of myth and legend may not have been a deluge of rain, but a global tsunami caused by the moon's violent birth into our world. Was the antediluvian civilization, the fabled Atlantis or Lemuria of esoteric lore, a victim of this cosmic event? Were they a native Terran civilization that had reached incredible heights of technological and spiritual development, only to be wiped out by the very act that made the Earth more hospitable for the life that would follow? Or, to delve deeper into the shadows, was this antediluvian civilization not of this Earth at all? Could they have been the very beings who brought the moon, the engineers of our world, who perished in the unpredictable aftermath of their own grand design? We are left with a tapestry of tantalizing possibilities, a mystery woven from the threads of ancient myth, scientific anomaly, and speculative theory. The moon, our silent, watchful neighbor, may hold the key to a past far more complex and dramatic than we have ever imagined. It may be a natural satellite, a hollow spaceship, a terraforming tool, or a tombstone for a lost world? The answers, if they exist, are likely buried deep within the earth, in the coded language of our most ancient texts, and perhaps, in the silent, dust-covered plains of the moon itself. The next time you look up at its gentle, silvery light, remember the questions that hang in the darkness around it. For you may be looking at not just a beautiful celestial object, but a witness, and perhaps a catalyst, to the very dawn and fall of our world as we think we know it. The surface of our planet is a map of recorded history, etched with the rise and fall of empires, the ruins of cities we know, and the graves of kings we can name. But this is only a fraction of our world's story. Beneath the vast, churning expanse of our oceans, concealed under miles of water and the weight of forgotten time, lies another history, a silent, submerged chronicle of civilizations that may have thrived long before the first words of our own history were written. If the Great Flood, or a series of cataclysmic events like it, did indeed redraw the map of the ancient world, it stands to reason that the evidence of those who came before would lie entombed in the very abyss that consumed them. This is a journey into the deep, a quest for the builders of that abyssal world, and an exploration of the Earth's greatest, most mysterious archive, the ocean itself. Our descent begins off the coast of a small Japanese island, Yonaguni-jima. In 1986, a local diver, Kihachiro Aratake, was scouting the area for a new shark-watching spot when he stumbled upon something that would shatter our understanding of the ancient past. There, some 80 feet below the surface, lay a colossal stone structure, a monolithic testament to an unknown architect. Now known as the Yonaguni Monument, this submerged formation is a breathtaking enigma. It is a series of immense, tiered platforms, sharp right angles, and towering stone pillars that appear to be hewn from the bedrock with an impossible precision. Spanning an area larger than a football field, the monument features what many describe as a grand staircase, stone-carved channels, and a triangular formation that bears a striking resemblance to a turtle's head. Geologists, adhering to the comfortable narrative of known history, are quick to dismiss it. They argue that Yonaguni is a product of nature, the result of sandstone eroded by strong ocean currents and tectonic activity. They speak of natural shearing and stratification, pointing to the inherent properties of the rock. But can nature truly carve with such apparent intent? Can random currents create such symmetrical, near-perfect right angles and straight, parallel lines? Masaaki Kimura, a marine geologist from the University of the Ryukyus, has spent over a decade mapping the site. He is convinced that Yonaguni is man-made, a remnant of a 5,000-year-old city, if not older. He has identified what he believes are roads, castle-like structures, and even a stadium, all part of a sophisticated complex that was suddenly and violently submerged. If he is right, then the history books are wrong. A civilization with the capacity for monumental architecture existed in this part of the world thousands of years before the recognized great civilizations of Egypt or Mesopotamia. It existed, and then it vanished, swallowed by the waves, leaving behind a single, silent testament to its power. Was this a victim of the same cataclysm that brought the moon to our skies, a coastal metropolis drowned by the resulting global tsunamis? Half a world away, in the crystalline waters of the Bahamas, another mystery lies scattered across the seabed. This is the Bimini Road, a submerged, pavement-like formation of large, rectangular limestone blocks arranged in a neat, linear pattern stretching for nearly half a mile. Discovered in 1968, the road, or wall, or pier, for no one can agree on what it truly is, immediately ignited a firestorm of controversy. For many, it was the fulfillment of a prophecy. The famed American psychic Edgar Cayce had predicted decades earlier that evidence of the lost city of Atlantis would be discovered in this very area, near Bimini, in 68 or 69. And here it was, what appeared to be a massive, ancient causeway, built with megalithic stones that fit together with uncanny precision. Geologists once again offered naturalistic explanations, describing it as beach rock, where minerals and sand cement together in layers that can fracture into block-like shapes. Yet, the regularity of the stones, their uniform thickness, and their deliberate arrangement challenge this simple explanation. Divers have reported finding multiple layers of stone, suggesting a structure of considerable thickness and complexity. They have noted mortise and tenon-like features on some blocks, classic signs of ancient construction. Could the Bimini Road be a surviving fragment of a vast Atlantean harbor complex, a remnant of a maritime civilization that possessed an intimate knowledge of stone and sea? The neatly arranged blocks seem to mock our conventional understanding of history, a silent, stony challenge from the abyss. The trail of submerged enigmas leads us next to the coast of India, to the legendary city of Dwarka. In Hindu scripture, Dwarka is the sacred city of Lord Krishna, a golden metropolis so magnificent it was said to have been built by the celestial architect, Vishvakarma. The texts describe a meticulously planned city with grand palaces, public squares, and a formidable sea wall. For centuries, Dwarka was considered mere myth, a beautiful story from the epic Mahabharata. But in the late 20th century, and again in the early 2000s, marine archaeologists exploring the Gulf of Cambay off the coast of modern-day Dwarka made a staggering discovery. Sonar scans revealed the unmistakable geometry of a sprawling city, several miles long and wide, resting on the seabed more than 120 feet below. Dredging operations brought up artifacts that would rewrite the history of the subcontinent, pottery shards, beads, sculptures, and even human remains. Carbon dating of a piece of wood from the site yielded an astonishing age of over 9,500 years. This would make the submerged city of Dwarka thousands of years older than the earliest known cities of Sumeria and Egypt, pushing the dawn of urban civilization back into the mists of the last ice age. Indian scriptures claim that the original city of Dwarka was reclaimed by the sea in a great flood immediately following the departure of Krishna from the earth. Are we looking at the physical proof of that sacred story? A golden city, built by gods or men who rivaled them, now sleeping in a watery grave, another casualty of a prehistoric, world-ending deluge. Yonaguni, Bimini, and Dwarka are but the most famous examples. The advent of advanced sonar and satellite altimetry has allowed us to peel back the blue curtain of the ocean and gaze upon the secrets of the seafloor as never before. What we are finding is a landscape littered with anomalies that defy geological explanation. Side scan. Sonar has revealed what appear to be submerged pyramids in the Atlantic, vast, symmetrical mounds that mirror the Giza Plateau. Scans of the deepest, most remote oceanic trenches, places like the Mariana Trench, have shown strange, symmetrical features and metallic glints that have no business being there. Are these the ruins of even older, more alien structures? Perhaps outposts for a civilization that did not merely live by the sea, but within it. This notion brings us to one of humanity's most persistent and alluring myths, the legend of merfolk. From the sirens of ancient Greece to the fish-tailed gods of Babylon and the finned people of countless coastal cultures, the idea of intelligent, aquatic humanoids is a universal archetype. We dismiss these as fantasies, the fanciful creations of sailors and fishermen. But what if they are a distorted folk memory, a garbled echo of a forgotten truth? What if the merfolk of legend are the descendants of a pre-flood people? Consider a scenario where an advanced coastal or island-dwelling civilization faced an impending cataclysm. Seeing the waters rise, knowing their world was about to be drowned, could they have used their advanced knowledge, be it technological or genetic, to adapt To alter themselves, to become one with the ocean that was claiming their homes. Could they have engineered a new form of humanity, one capable of breathing water, withstanding the crushing pressures of the deep, and navigating the abyssal plains? In this light, the myths of merfolk transform from fairy tales into a desperate story of survival. The beautiful, alluring mermaid becomes a symbol of a lost branch of humanity, forever separated from their surface-dwelling cousins, their existence a haunting reminder of the world that was lost. The fish gods, like the Babylonian Oans, who was said to have emerged from the sea to give knowledge to mankind, could be a memory of these survivors, these builders of the abyss, attempting to reconnect with those who were left behind on the shore. The ocean, then, is not merely a graveyard of lost cities. It is a living archive. Its currents carry the whispers of forgotten languages, its depths preserve the tools and temples of peoples we never knew existed. The sheer pressure and cold of the abyss can preserve artifacts far better than the wind and rain of the surface world. Wooden ships that would rot away in a decade on land can survive for centuries in the deep ocean's anoxic environment. Stone structures, safe from the freeze-thaw cycles that crumble mountain ruins, can stand for millennia, their secrets locked away from the prying eyes of surface dwellers. The sonar scans showing submerged roads, the megalithic blocks of Bimini, the sprawling city of Dvarka, the impossible geometry of Yonaguni, these are the chapter headings in a history of a forgotten world. They suggest that before our recorded history began, another story was playing out, a story of powerful maritime civilizations that understood the earth and the cosmos in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. They were not primitive hunter-gatherers, but masters of monumental architecture, global navigators, and perhaps, even masters of their own biology. And they all met a similar fate. They were erased by a global flood, their work submerged, their names forgotten. Their very existence relegated to the realm of myth. The ocean that was their source of life became their tomb. But in that tomb, their legacy waits. Every new anomaly detected by a sonar pulse, every strange artifact brought up in a deep-sea trawler's net, is a potential key to unlocking this lost history. We stand on the shore of a vast and profound mystery, and the answers lie waiting in the dark, silent world beneath the waves. The ocean is Earth's ultimate archive, and its shelves are filled with the silent, stone-bound epics of the builders of the abyss. We have only to learn how to read them. Across the face of our planet, etched into its very skin, lies a hidden blueprint. It is a network of unseen power, a ghostly architecture connecting the most sacred and enigmatic places on Earth. We see the nodes of this network in the silent, standing stones of Karnak, the sun-drenched pyramids of Giza, the lonely Moai of Easter Island, and the jungle-choked temples of the Maya. These sites, separated by vast oceans and millennia of history, are bound by an invisible thread, an ancient and mysterious global grid. Today, we call these threads ley lines, but in the time before the flood, they may have been known as the Serpent Path, a living, planetary system of energy that an advanced civilization learned to harness, manipulate, and travel. This is the story of that grid, a pre-Diluvian power source that may have offered mastery over energy, space, and perhaps even time itself. The modern discovery of this network began not in a laboratory, but on a sunlit afternoon in the English countryside. In 1921, a self-taught archaeologist and amateur photographer named Alfred Watkins was riding his horse across the hills of Herefordshire when he had a profound realization. As he gazed out upon the landscape, he saw, in a flash of sudden insight, a web of perfectly straight lines crisscrossing the land, connecting ancient sites like cairns, long barrows, standing stones, and old churches built on pre-Christian sacred ground. He called them ley lines, believing he had rediscovered the lost trade routes of Neolithic man. But Watkins may have only scratched the surface of a far deeper and more potent mystery. What if these lines were not merely ancient footpaths, but conduits of terrestrial energy? This is the theory that electrified researchers who followed in Watkins's footsteps. They propose that the Earth is not a dormant sphere of rock, but a living, breathing entity, with its own circulatory system. This system consists of a geometric grid of energy. Lines of telluric, or earth, currents that flow across the globe, much like acupuncture meridians on a human body. Where these lines intersect, they create powerful vortices of energy, natural wells of power. It was at these precise locations, the theory goes, that the ancients built their most important structures. They were not just building temples. They were building generators, accumulators, and conductors, tapping into the very lifeblood of the planet. This concept of a sacred, geometric blueprint for the world is not a modern invention. It is echoed in the most ancient traditions. The Druids of Britain spoke of spirit paths, the Australian Aboriginals followed their dreaming tracks. And in China, these currents were known as dragon lines, the powerful flow of lung mei, or dragon's breath. These cultures, separated by geography but united in esoteric wisdom, understood that to build upon these lines was to place oneself in harmony with the cosmos, to tap into a source of immense power and spiritual potential. The evidence for this global grid is staggering when viewed on a planetary scale. If you were to draw a line around the Earth, connecting the Great Pyramid of Giza to the mysterious Nazca lines in Peru, and continue that line, you would find it passes directly over other significant sites, including the stone circles of Avebury in England and the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley. This is no coincidence. The alignment is precise, a great circle route that suggests a profound and shared knowledge of global geography among cultures we are told were isolated from one another. Another line connects the enigmatic rock-hewn churches of Lalibela in Ethiopia with the temples of Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Easter Island, the most remote inhabited place on Earth, lies on a direct line connecting it to Giza and other key locations. How is this possible? How could ancient civilizations, supposedly without flight or satellite technology, have conspired to build their most sacred monuments along these precise global pathways? The answer may lie in the purpose of the grid itself. Perhaps it was not just a source of ambient energy, but a sophisticated transportation and communication network. This brings us to the tantalizing and persistent myths of portals, stargates, and magical doorways. Across the world, ancient stones are associated with legends of passage. The standing stones of Stonehenge, themselves a nexus of at least 14 major ley lines, are described in folklore as a gateway to other realms. The massive Gateway of the Sun at Tiahuanaco in Bolivia, carved from a single block of andesite stone, is adorned with intricate carvings of a weeping god, and is said by local legends to be a portal to the lands of the gods. Incan legends speak of the Amarumuru, a massive stone doorway carved into a rock face near Lake Titicaca. It is said that a priest, fleeing the Spanish conquistadors with a golden solar disk, placed the disk into a special recess in the door and vanished through the solid rock, never to be seen again. Are these just stories, or are they the garbled memories of a lost technology? Imagine if the builders of this pre-flood grid understood the physics of spacetime in a way we are only now beginning to theorize. Imagine if they knew that by concentrating the Earth's natural electromagnetic energies at these specific nodal points, they could create a localized distortion in the fabric of reality. By amplifying the energy at a site like Stonehenge or Giza, perhaps using crystals, sound frequencies, or even focused human consciousness, they could open a rift, a wormhole, connecting that point to any other major node on the grid. Travel would be instantaneous. The journey from Egypt to the Andes would take not months, but moments. This Serpent Path would not be a road for walking, but a conduit for teleportation. It would explain the otherwise inexplicable similarities in architecture, artwork, and mythology between ancient cultures separated by impassable oceans. They were not separate at all, they were districts in a single, globally connected civilization, a civilization bound together by a planetary energy grid. The nodes themselves, Stonehenge, Easter Island, Nazca, were not just temples, they were stations. The Nazca lines in Peru, those vast geoglyphs visible only from the sky, have baffled researchers for decades. Why would a culture create massive drawings of animals and geometric shapes that they themselves could not see? Perhaps they were never meant to be seen from above, but were designed to be experienced from within the grid. Perhaps they were energetic schematics, circuit diagrams for the telluric currents, or addresses for a specific destination in the portal network. The Moai of Easter Island, those stoic stone giants, all face inland, their backs to the sea. It is said they were built to project a protective spiritual energy, or mana, over the land. Could this mana be another name for the concentrated telluric energy of a major grid node? Were the Moai acting as energetic antennae, beacons for the Serpent Path? This leads to a profound and unsettling question: what happened to this network? If such a sophisticated system of power and travel existed, why is it gone? Why are we left with only the silent, dormant ruins of its nodes and the faint, ghostly whispers of its power lines? The answer may lie in the very cataclysm that ended the antediluvian age. The arrival of the moon, the shifting of the Earth's poles, the crustal displacement, any of these events would have had a devastating effect on a finely tuned planetary grid. The Earth's magnetic field would have fluctuated wildly, scrambling the energy pathways. The precise geometric alignments of the sites would have been thrown off by crustal shifts, rendering the network inoperable. The stargates would have closed, the serpent paths would have gone dark. The world-spanning civilization would have been shattered in an instant, its cities and colonies isolated, its power source extinguished. Or, perhaps the disruption was deliberate. Imagine if this energy grid, in the wrong hands, could be weaponized. The same power that could open a doorway between continents could, if overloaded or misaligned, trigger earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or atmospheric disasters. Perhaps the flood was not an accident, but a calculated act of planetary sabotage, or a desperate measure to shut down a system that had become too dangerous. Maybe a rival faction of this ancient civilization, or perhaps the builders themselves, chose to bury the network, to intentionally misalign the sites and sever the connections to prevent a greater catastrophe. They may have encoded the secrets of the grid into myth and stone, leaving behind a puzzle for a future humanity to solve, a warning against meddling with the very powers that shape the world. We are that future humanity, and we are now rediscovering the pieces of that puzzle. We are mapping the magnetic anomalies, rediscovering the ancient alignments, and hearing the faint, resonant hum of the Earth's energy at these sacred sites. We are beginning to understand that our planet is more than a passive backdrop for human history, it is an active participant, a source of incredible power, with a hidden history written in its very structure. The Serpent Path lies dormant, but its energy still flows, waiting. The doorways in the stone remain closed, but the legends of their opening persist. As we stand among the megaliths and pyramids of a forgotten age, we are walking in the footsteps of the masters of a lost science, the builders of a global grid that promised mastery over the physical world. Their story is a silent, cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most powerful civilizations can fall, and that the greatest secrets of our world are not buried in tombs, but are written into the very fabric of the earth itself. Before the first human pharaoh sat on the throne of Egypt, before the first mortal king ruled in Sumer, history does not fade into a primitive darkness as we are taught. Instead, it glows with a strange and brilliant light. The most ancient traditions of humanity, from the sun-scorched plains of Mesopotamia to the dense jungles of Mesoamerica, tell a unified, startling story, that the earliest rulers of this world were not human. They were beings of immense wisdom, terrifying power, and radiant presence. They are remembered as the Shining Ones, a race of overlords who governed the earth in a forgotten golden age, a time before the great cataclysm that would drown the world and expunge their reign from all but our most sacred and cryptic myths. Our journey into their lost kingdom begins in the cradle of civilization, Sumer, where clay tablets etched with the world's first writing tell of a time when humanity was not yet master of its own destiny. Before the long lists of human kings, the Sumerian king list records the reigns of a series of godlike monarchs who ruled for impossibly long periods, tens of thousands of years. These were not mere chieftains, they were the founders of civilization itself. And assisting them, emerging from the waters of the Persian Gulf, were the 7 Apkallu, the 7 sages. These beings were described as amphibious, sometimes depicted with the lower body of a fish and the upper body of a man, and were said to possess a divine and overwhelming wisdom. They were not gods to be worshipped in the conventional sense, but teachers, architects, and engineers. The Apkallu, whose name means wise one or sage, are credited with giving humanity the fundamentals of civilization, law, agriculture, writing, and, most importantly, the knowledge of how to build cities. They were the master planners, the divine consultants who raised humanity from a state of primitive ignorance and set them on the path to greatness. But who were they? And where did they come from? Their association with the water, their emergence from the abyss to gift knowledge, echoes the themes of a submerged, pre-flood world. Were they survivors of a drowned civilization, attempting to rebuild and educate the primitive humans they found clinging to the new shorelines? This concept of a pre-human dynasty of divine rulers finds its most dramatic expression in the lore of ancient Egypt. The famous Turin King list, a papyrus dating back to the time of Ramesses II, does not begin with Menes, the first human pharaoh. It begins with a long and detailed lineage of gods who ruled the land of the Nile for millennia. Ta, the creator god, reigned first, followed by Ra, the sun god, and a succession of other deities. Following the reign of the great gods, the list details another dynasty, a mysterious group referred to as the Shemsu-Hor, the followers of Horus. These beings, described as powerful and enlightened, reigned for over 13,000 years, acting as a bridge between the rule of the gods and the first mortal kings. Mainstream Egyptology dismisses these accounts as mythological fancy, a way for later pharaohs to legitimize their rule by claiming divine ancestry. But what if the Egyptians were recording a literal truth? What if the land we now call Egypt was once the seat of a non-human intelligence that governed for an age so long it dwarfs all of recorded human history? The sheer scale and mathematical precision of the Giza pyramids, the advanced knowledge of astronomy and medicine evident in the earliest dynasties, could these be the fading legacy of the Shining Ones? The last remnants of a science and wisdom inherited from a far older, non-human source. The very title, Shining Ones, evokes a sense of radiant, otherworldly beings, a description that permeates cultures across the globe. We see this radiance again in the Vedic scriptures of ancient India, some of the oldest religious texts in the world. They speak of the Devas, a race of shining, celestial beings engaged in a perpetual cosmic struggle against their rivals, the Asuras. These were not abstract spirits, they were described as physical beings who wielded extraordinary weapons and flew in celestial vehicles called Vimanas. The sky battles described in epics like the Mahabharata are not simple mythological clashes, they are detailed accounts of aerial warfare, complete with descriptions of weapons that sound eerily like modern high-tech armaments, beams of light that could incinerate entire armies, projectiles that could shake the very earth. Who were these Devas, these shining ones of the East? They were masters of a technology so advanced it appears as magic to our modern eyes. They were beings who saw the sky not as a limit, but as a domain to be conquered and contested. The texts state that they interacted with humanity, taking human wives, fathering semi-divine heroes, and offering divine knowledge to chosen sages. Like the Apkallu and the Egyptian god kings, they were teachers and progenitors, the guiding hand behind early human civilization. Their wars were not fought in some distant heaven, but in the skies of our own planet, a conflict that may have had devastating consequences for the burgeoning human populations below. The trail of the Shining Ones does not end in the Old World. It stretches across the vast expanse of the Atlantic to the Americas, where we find the same story told in a different tongue. In Mesoamerica, the Aztecs, Mayans, and Toltecs all revered a being known as Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. He was not a native god in the traditional sense, he was a visitor. The legends describe him as a tall, white-skinned man with a flowing beard, who arrived from the sea. He was a bringer of peace and knowledge, who taught the people mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and the arts. He outlawed human sacrifice and ushered in a golden age of learning and prosperity. Further south, in the Andes, the Incan Empire was founded on the teachings of a similar being named Viracocha. He, too, was described as a tall, bearded, pale-skinned man who carried a staff and possessed miraculous powers. Like Quetzalcoatl, he traveled among the people, teaching the fundamentals of civilization, performing healings, and establishing a new code of law. Both Quetzalcoatl and Viracocha are remembered as glowing or shining beings, whose very presence was luminous. And both are said to have departed with a promise to one day return. Why would cultures on opposite sides of the world, supposedly isolated from one another, invent such strikingly similar stories of a benevolent, bearded, light-skinned teacher god arriving from the sea? Unless, of course, they were not inventions at all, but the historical records of the same group of beings, the Shining Ones, visiting and educating different corners of a prehistoric, global civilization. The physical descriptions, bearded, pale-skinned, glowing, are a startling anomaly in lands populated by smooth-skinned, dark-haired peoples. They suggest a distinct, coherent race of beings who operated on a global scale. They were the world's first kings, its first scientists, its first priests. They were a ruling class that existed before humanity was ready to rule itself. And then, they vanished. Their departure, in almost every culture, is linked to a great cataclysm. This brings us to the final, chilling question: did these beings survive the flood, or did they cause it? One possibility is that the Shining Ones were themselves victims of the cataclysm. They were a highly advanced, perhaps extraterrestrial, civilization that had established a global network of colonies on prehistoric Earth. They raised humanity in their image, nurtured its growth, and ruled as benevolent, if distant, overlords. But they were powerless against the cosmic forces that triggered the flood, be it the arrival of the moon, a polar shift, or a celestial impact. In this scenario, they are a tragic, lost race. The Apkallu emerging from the waters are the last, desperate survivors trying to salvage what they can of their knowledge. Quetzalcoatl and Viracocha's departures are the final, sorrowful retreats of a dying race, leaving their fledgling human subjects to fend for themselves in a ruined world. But there is a darker possibility. The wars of the Vedic Devas and Asuras, fought in the heavens with weapons of mass destruction, hint at a terrible internal conflict. What if the Shining Ones were not a monolithic group, but were composed of warring factions. What if their civil war escalated to the point where they unleashed forces that shattered the ecological balance of the entire planet? The Great Flood, in this context, becomes an act of war. It was not a natural disaster, but a planetary apocalypse, deliberately triggered by a faction of the Shining Ones to wipe out their rivals. Humanity was simply the collateral damage, the innocent bystanders caught in a war of the gods. This narrative casts a sinister light on the stories. Perhaps one faction caused the flood, while another, the Apkallu Quetzalcoatl, were the good scientists and teachers, trying to mitigate the disaster and save some vestige of civilization. The promise to return is not just a comforting myth, it is a vow to one day come back and reclaim a world that was once theirs, to see if their experiment of human civilization has succeeded or failed. We are left standing in the long shadow of these forgotten rulers. The evidence is etched into our oldest stones and our most sacred stories. The impossibly ancient god-kings of Sumer and Egypt, the skyfaring devas of India, the glowing teachers of the Americas, they are all signposts pointing to a lost chapter of Earth's history, a time when humanity was young and the world was governed by beings of light. Whether they were saviors or destroyers, victims or perpetrators, their legacy is the foundation upon which our entire civilization is built. They are the silent, shining specters that haunt the dawn of human history, a reminder that our reign as masters of this planet may be far shorter, and far more recent, than we have ever dared to believe. In the heart of our most enduring legends, nestled between the fall of godlike kings and the rise of the great waters, lies the whisper of a lost technology, a science not of metal and circuitry, but of crystal and stone. The myths of the antediluvian world do not speak of burning fossil fuels or splitting the atom, they speak of a power that was clean, resonant, and alive. They tell of crystal temples that pulsed with celestial light, of stones that could sing, heal, and remember. This was the technology of a civilization that understood the deepest secrets of frequency and vibration, a people who knew that the very planet itself could be turned into a resonant instrument. This is the story of that lost science, a quest for the memory of stone and the faint, harmonic echoes of a world powered by crystal. Our journey begins with the most potent of all antediluvian legends, Atlantis. While Plato spoke of its political and military might, it was the 20th century psychic Edgar Cayce who, in his deep trances, claimed to access the Akashic records, a purported universal library of all cosmic knowledge, and brought back detailed accounts of Atlantean technology. According to Cayce, the power that fueled their magnificent civilization came from a series of colossal crystals. The greatest of these was the Twai stone, the firestone, a massive, six-sided crystal housed within a domed temple that could be opened to the sky. This was no mere decorative jewel. It was a power plant of unimaginable capacity. Cayce described how the crystal gathered solar, lunar, and stellar energies, concentrating and amplifying them into a powerful beam of invisible force. This energy was broadcast wirelessly across the land, powering vehicles, lighting homes, and rejuvenating the bodies of the Atlanteans themselves. It was a system of clean, limitless energy, the ultimate expression of a civilization in perfect harmony with the cosmos. But this great power, the legends warn, became the seed of their destruction. As the Atlanteans grew corrupt, they began to tune their crystals for warfare, creating powerful energy weapons. In their arrogance, they pushed the firestone beyond its limits. The great crystal became overloaded, its resonant frequency turning destructive. A chain reaction occurred, shattering the crystal and triggering a series of cataclysmic earthquakes and volcanic eruptions that tore their island continent apart. In a single, terrible day and night, the crystal temples of Atlantis, and the civilization they powered, sank beneath the waves, their light extinguished. Is this just a cautionary tale, a myth of hubris and destruction? Perhaps. But the idea of temples built around a central, resonant core, designed to heal, enlighten, or store knowledge, is not unique to the legend of Atlantis. It is a recurring theme in the folklore of the ancient world. Celtic myths from Ireland and Britain speak of megalithic stone circles that would sing on certain days of the year, emitting a low, resonant hum that could induce altered states of consciousness. The builders of these circles were said to be masters of sound, able to levitate the massive stones into place using specific frequencies and chants. In the traditions of the Aboriginal people of Australia, Uluru, the great sandstone monolith, is not just a rock, it is a living library. They believe that during the Dreamtime, their creator ancestors sang the world into existence, and that these song lines are still embedded within the sacred stones of the landscape. By touching the rock and performing the correct rituals, one can access the memory of the Dreamtime, the ancient knowledge of their people. The temple, in this view, is the land itself, and the stone is its hard drive. This idea of stone as a vessel for memory or energy might sound like fantasy, but it is grounded in a startling scientific reality. Many of the most sacred and ancient sites on Earth, the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Standing Stones of Karnak, the granite temples of South India, are built with massive quantities of quartz and granite. This choice of material is far from accidental. Granite is rich in quartz crystals, and quartz possesses a remarkable property known as piezoelectricity. When you apply pressure to a quartz crystal, it generates a measurable electric charge. Conversely, when you apply an electric charge to a quartz crystal, it vibrates at a precise and stable frequency. This property is the reason quartz is the silent heart of our modern world. It keeps time in our watches, it stabilizes frequencies in our radios, computers, and cell phones. It is, in essence, a perfect transducer of energy, capable of converting vibration into electricity and electricity into vibration. Now, imagine this property scaled up. Imagine the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza, a resonant box constructed entirely of massive, precisely cut blocks of red granite. The chamber is acoustically perfect, designed to amplify specific frequencies. Researchers who have experimented with sound inside the chamber report that it seems to come alive, the very air vibrating as the granite resonates. The sarcophagus within the chamber rings like a bell when struck, tuned to a specific harmonic frequency. Could the Great Pyramid and structures like it have been designed as colossal machines? Not tombs for dead pharaohs, but active, resonant power plants, much like the crystal temples of Atlantis. By harnessing the natural vibrations of the earth, the subtle, ever-present hum known as the Schumann resonance, these structures could have acted as immense piezoelectric generators. The Schumann resonance is a global electromagnetic frequency, a standing wave that exists in the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere, pulsing at an average of 7.83 Hz. It is, in effect, the planet's heartbeat. A structure built with the correct sacred geometry, using vast quantities of crystalline rock, could theoretically be tuned to this frequency. It could draw in this ambient planetary energy, amplify it, and convert it into a usable form. The pyramid would not be a passive monument, it would be a living temple, humming with the very energy of the Earth, a self-sustaining source of power for a civilization that understood the physics of resonance. This energy could be used for more than just power. It could be tuned for healing. The concept of sound healing is ancient, based on the idea that every organ and cell in the body has a resonant frequency, and that disease is a state of being out of tune. A temple designed to generate specific, life-affirming frequencies could have been a true fountain of youth, a place where people went to be bathed in resonant energy, their bodies realigned and restored at a cellular level. Even more profoundly, these crystal structures could have served as memory storage devices. We are just now, in the 21st century, developing technology that uses quartz crystals to store vast amounts of data for millions of years. A tiny sliver of fused quartz can hold hundreds of terabytes of information, a library of Alexandria on a thumbnail. If we are only now discovering this capability, is it so hard to believe that a previous civilization, one that specialized in crystal technology, had mastered it? Perhaps the Great Pyramid is not empty, as archaeologists claim. Perhaps its true contents are not gold and jewels, but information. The knowledge of the Shining Ones, the history of the pre-flood world, the secrets of the cosmos, all of it could be encoded into the very crystalline matrix of the stones. The temple itself would be the archive. The memory of stone would be a literal, not a metaphorical, reality. To access it, one would not need to read a book, but to know the correct resonant key, the right frequency, the right chant, the right state of consciousness, that would unlock the data stored within the vibrating lattice of the crystal. This is the ultimate legacy of the crystal temples. When the flood came, when the Atlantean firestone overloaded, and the Earth's crust shifted, the power grid of the ancient world was shattered. The great temples fell silent. But the memory they hold may not have been erased. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. The frequencies generated by those ancient structures may still be echoing in the planetary grid, faint but detectable. The knowledge encoded in their stones may still be locked away, waiting for us to rediscover the key. Every time we feel a sense of awe and peace at a sacred site, are we just appreciating the architecture, or are we subconsciously responding to a lingering, harmonious frequency embedded in the very stones? Are psychic impressions, visions, and spiritual experiences at these sites simply products of our imagination, or are they faint signals bleeding through from a planetary memory bank? We are a civilization that has forgotten the language of vibration, the memory of stone. We build with dead materials, deaf to the living pulse of the planet beneath our feet. But the crystal temples of the past offer a different path, a vision of a world in tune with itself. Their ruins are a challenge to our understanding of technology, a reminder that true power may not come from explosive force, but from subtle harmony. The planet is still humming with their lost frequencies, and deep within the crystalline heart of the oldest stones on Earth, an entire age of wisdom may be waiting for us to listen. We have journeyed from a world without a moon to the bottom of the sea, traced the ghost of a planetary power grid, and stood in the shadow of gods who ruled before man. We've seen that stone itself might hold the memory of a world powered by crystal light. The question is no longer if there was a world before the flood, but what was it? Were we a grand experiment by the Shining Ones? Was the arrival of the moon a terraforming project or an act of war? Are the keys to unlocking this lost knowledge still humming in the resonant chambers of the Earth, waiting for us to listen? The official story of our past is filled with gaps. These mysteries are the breadcrumbs that lead us back to the truth. If this journey has made you question what you thought you knew, hit that like button to help us push this knowledge out of the shadows. And if you want to continue exploring the greatest mysteries of our hidden history, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell, so you never miss an expedition into the unknown. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these lost chapters resonates most with you? Is it the hollow moon, the sunken city of Dvarka, the idea of a stargate at Stonehenge, or the crystal power of Atlantis?